Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Tudor. I hardly know her.
That's it.
Now it's 20 grams percent less trans fat. Grams and percent, I screwed that up.
That's a gap. Well, that ruined the podcast. We've got to shut
All
down.
right, goodbye, everybody.
Peace. But there is less fat in this podcast than others.
That is the voice of your one and only lovely host, Emily.
I'm not the one and only. You're another host.
You're the one and only Emily that hosts this show.
Okay, I guess I'll take that.
I
And
am
he's the one and only
your
Garrett.
lovely host's other host, Garrett. And we have our producer and co-host, Jeff.
Hi.
It's a good thing we don't have two Jeffs or two Garretts hosting.
That'd be very confusing.
So can I bring up a way off topic thing?
Yeah, always.
My coworker asked me yesterday if I would be able to date somebody who had the exact same name as me.
Would you?
I don't think so.
You know, Paris Hilton
It'd be weird.
is like married to another Paris or was
Really?
engaged. Yeah.
It makes screaming my name out a lot less weirder.
Would you not be able to date somebody who had the same name as you because your name is Garrett, or because you just like if your name was Aaron and her name was
I get
Aaron?
confused about which Garrett they're talking to.
As Big Kirk and Cat Kirk.
I think my brain might just take it to the clone scenario where would you date your clone or another version of you?
Would you?
Maybe.
You date a clone of you?
I don't know. I already don't like myself that much, so I don't know if I could stand two of me.
Oh, that's so sad.
Garrett, we love you. I date a clone
Anyway,
of Garrett.
so let's get into some Tudor talk, shall we?
Yeah, son.
Well, not really, because today's a Q&A episode.
There's a little bit of Tudor talk today.
Today's a little bit about tutors and then the
Us.
people who talk about tutors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
should we just jump right in?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Cool.
Are we going to do kind of specific order, or are we just going to go through and read off ones we're more interested in? We'll try to answer as many as we can.
I think
'cause
I'll-
we got
I
a lot,
think I'll
actually a
just
lot
ask
more than
them
I thought
all.
we would have.
I think I'll just ask them all. Because I feel like there's a decent amount. We got it.
Gotta ask them all. Gotta ask them all.
So we'll start with the first one. What would Jeff and Garrett have a podcast about?
This is
Well,
actually
we've
pretty easy. Because one, Garrett, you've already been on podcasts before.
Yes, this is actually not my first rodeo. I used to do a podcast called For the Love of Gaming. Please don't go listen to it. It was a long time ago. It was very crude, very, very rough.
Those were the
I'm not-
dark days.
I did a lot of good work when because I used to write for a video game website as well, and I was proud of my work writing, but on the podcast I was like, I did a lot of cool stuff there, but you know, now I'm a Tudor boy.
Now you're a Tudor kid.
I'm a Tootie. I'm a rooted and tootin' Tudor.
Yeah.
Nice try.
So Jeff and I would think we would probably do a video game podcast.
Yeah,
Or at
most
least
likely.
like
Huh?
a pop culture 90s, 80s.
Well, I've been
type
actually
thing.
toying around with the idea lately. I need to actually do it. I've been coming up with the idea for a podcast myself of where I would talk about television shows that have been canceled, like had a cult following, and then either been like rebooted or like revived or brought back. Especially nowadays with
simply-
especially things like Netflix is such a big deal about bringing old shows back to life, and especially a lot of shows, popular cult shows, have come back
Yeah.
years later, like the newest one, Twin Peaks. I know.
Oh my god!
yeah,
I
like-
got so much to say about fucking Twin Peaks.
There's-
This
'cause
is now the Twin Peaks podcast.
If anybody listening also loves Twin Peaks, get a hold of me and let's talk Twin Peaks. Oh my god, it's so good.
But that was always one of the ideas I've really wanted to do, just because there's a lot of shows I like that have gotten brought back from being canceled, and there's also other shows that have been canceled that people want brought back, but I don't think should be at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But that's probably, if I did a podcast, I really would love to do that soon.
Yeah, that'd be pretty fun.
I'd listen to it. What are your guys' day jobs? Well, I am a content writer, so I work for Angie's List, and I just write marketing copy and articles and website stuff and newsletters and stuff like that. So
Sounds like a very adult job.
it is a very adult job. Very adult job. I like it though. I like writing. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I'm really happy I have a career where I just write all day. So
It
cool.
suits you very well.
It does. What about you guys? What are your day jobs? I don't know this about you. Shit, Jeff, what have you been doing for the last 8 years?
Jeff, what's your day job?
Currently, my main job is I work at a toy store.
He's
now,
the
before
manager.
Emily starts interrupting me already, because she does that every time I bring up my job. It's a local toy store, so it's me and literally 3 other people. We run a local toy store where we buy, sell, trade like anything pop culture toy related, from like 1970s Star Wars up to anything that's brand new in the shops today. And that's really what we do. It's called the Toy Pit, and we've got a lot of a following, mostly because one of my coworkers is getting well known on social media lately. But when I'm not working there, I either producing this or I also do a lot of videography work. So I help freelancing, making videos for either weddings or shows or churches. So that's what I get to do.
Cool stuff. I like
Yeah.
that toy store. It's a cool toy store.
It's fun. I see a lot of cool old school toys.
It's called the Toy Pit, guys. And FYI, you can buy some of their stuff online. So follow them on Instagram
You go on Instagram or Facebook, you can
or
find us.
Facebook. Check them
That'd
out.
The Toy Pit should have a podcast.
Actually,
It's
Not
not
a
that
bad
bad of
idea.
an idea.
that'd be pretty cool.
My day job is I work for 4 local radio stations, all under one roof. They're all owned by the same company, and I work on the production side. So 90% of the time, when you hear a commercial on those stations, I had some hand in putting it on the air. I do a lot of voice work for them as well, so I do a lot of commercials.
I would have never guessed Garrett has a voice for radio.
And a
That
face.
deep sexual voice that just gets you down to the bone.
But yeah, that is my job. I also work at a local video game store, Disc Replay. It's whenever somebody asks me what I do for a living, I always lead off with the radio job. I don't go straight into Disc Replay.
Good call.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I used to do that myself before Toy Pit. I used to work at a movie game store myself.
Oh, what do you do for a living? I'm unemployed.
I don't have a job. So our next question is, what are my favorite fiction books? So, okay, I read a ton, and it's actually really, really, really hard for me to pick a favorite. But I will name a couple that
I bet I could name a favorite fictional series for you.
I mean, that's easy. Harry Potter. Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have. Let's see. Of the first book of Harry Potter, I have a French copy, a UK copy, a paperback, a hardback,
and the illustrated one.
and an illustrated copy. So I have 5 copies of the first Harry Potter book.
Man,
And
you have
then
a
2
UK one, and you have it and you can't even read it. That's crazy.
And a French version. I also really like, let's see, The Kite Runner is one of my favorite books. I really enjoy that. I read a book called The Fireman by Joe Hill last year, and I loved it. It's Stephen King's son who wrote it. It's really good. So it's hard for me to say I have a favorite. My favorite genre is fiction. It's just historical fiction. But yeah, I'm always going to be a Harry Potter girl.
So you said French Harry Potter, and now I'm imagining all the dialogue is French, but all the narration is still in English.
Do you want to know what they call a wand in French?
Le wand.
No, it's better than that. It's a baguette.
It's a croissant.
It's a baguette. It's a baguette. So Harry pulls out
that's
his...
not a joke. It's actually a baguette.
It's actually a baguette. Harry pulls out a baguette.
Because baguette in there just means like a stick.
Yeah. So breadstick and baguette. So
That's a much better image in my head. Just a bunch of wizards fighting each other with a piece of bread.
Voldemort was just...
So what happens next? And then Voldemort pulled out his baguette. And
said,
Harry pulled out
I don't
his
care, life is
baguette.
shit.
Oh, here's a really fun thing. So in the second Harry Potter book, Voldemort has to say, Voldemort writes in the air, Tom Marvolo Riddle, and then the words rearrange themselves to say, I am Lord Voldemort. Okay, but to make that work in French, they had to give him a ridiculous middle name like Zeus or something.
Wasn't it Elvis?
Elvis. It was Elvis. They had to give him the middle name, so it was Tom Elvis Riddle or something like that.
I want to read the other languages, see like what German
I
has and
know.
what Japan has.
So I was
For-
reading about how, you know, the scene in Game of Thrones where you find out Hodor's sad story.
Oh yeah.
I saw
Apparently,
this,
they
yeah.
had to change his name around a lot to make it work in other languages.
Oh.
Sometimes it didn't even really work.
No, they just were like, fuck it. I think they'll get it. Next question is, how did we all meet? So start
Well,
with
it was the
Garrett and
summer
Jeff.
of '72, as I remember.
We were shipping out to Nam.
Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?
Okay, so let's start with Garrett and Jeff because they met first.
Garrett and I met first.
We
At-
went to college at Ball State together.
Yep.
Ball
our
State
freshman year.
University.
We lived in the same floor of the dormitory.
We lived on the same floor, but we didn't really hang out or interact until like the beginning of the second semester, which was weird.
I think what it was like I just played a lot of video games in my room, and so like I was like the first room in the hallway, and so everyone come by my door and see me playing video games, and people just walk in like, "Hey, you're playing video games. I'm gonna watch you play." Okay.
I
And it just
remember
became a
me and
big
my
group
friends
of-
that I was hanging out with at the time. Like we would always walk by your door and like see like, I think it was like it'd be like I think you, Mac, and Casey playing like Rock Band, and we're like, oh man, they're the cool kids.
Yes, we were the cool kids.
I'm still hanging out with you to this day, so I think you're a
I
cool
know.
kid.
And that's going. We realized, oh yeah, like this year
9 years.
it'd be 10 years
Oh my
because
god.
that's how long Garrett and I known each other. And then it was actually the following year is then when I met Emily
Yes.
at the same school. We had a class together.
We had French class together. Jeff was in my class, and he was really cute, and he stole me from another man.
He tried to do some magic trick, so he pulled out his baguette.
I was like a man in waiting for Emily.
He was. Yeah, he stole me from another dude. And yeah, that was about 8 years ago in French class. And then I met Garrett through Jeff, obviously. Jeff had everybody over and he wanted to introduce me to them, so I met them all during an epic weekend when Steven turned 21, and there was a lot of alcohol involved. And
Best way to
Oh,
meet
that was the
someone.
absinthe night.
that was, and
that
that
was
was
a
the
dark
night.
night.
That was the weekend of crass.
Oh man, that was a good
Right.
weekend.
And then
That's-
we've been married for 4 years. Actually, it'll be 4 years
On July
here in
12th,
July.
we share an
And G-
anniversary.
and-
We share an anniversary with Catherine Parr and Henry VIII.
And Garrett was our best man.
He was.
I sure was. That was a good wedding.
So, what other historical period would you want to make a podcast about? I don't think you guys give a shit about history.
Ancient Rome.
Oh, I do.
Oh, never mind.
I've actually like my weird pie in the sky dream. Like if I gave enough of a shit, I would love to talk about Greek mythology.
Cool.
That should be a really awesome one.
Yeah, Greek
I
mythology
love
has like always been like
mythology.
super interesting to me. I've loved it since I was a kid.
I would like to learn more is actually like ancient like Japanese history.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I
Feudal
love-
Japan's really cool.
I love
That'd be
old
cool.
Japan. Like anything about most because like this how many things they create on their own, being this little island on
Yeah.
by themselves.
I would do a podcast about the 1700s, particularly the late 1700s, because that was the American Revolution, the French Revolution. And I'm currently reading a book about Queen Victoria, and it's really interesting to read about how close she was to in terms of time period to the French Revolution. So I think I'd do a podcast about that. Oops. She wants to know how I first became interested in the Tudors. My mom and sister were reading The Other Boleyn Girl, and I decided I wanted to read it. So my mom said no because it was raunchy. And so when she was done, I snuck it and I read it secretly. And that was in middle school sometime. So then I just really liked that book, and Mom and Becky would continue to buy Philippa Gregory books, and I would continue to read them. And then I eventually started getting them on my own, and it was a lot of
The
Philippa
rest,
Gregory.
as they say, is history.
And I legally had to become interested in the Tudors because of my marriage.
Jeff was not, but that's the thing is like only until this podcast Jeff has, okay, everybody find a husband like Jeff, because even though he never cared about the Tudors, he always listened to me and engaged in conversations with me about the Tudors just because I was interested in it. Like I'd be reading a biography and I'd close it and start talking to him about whatever happened in it, and he would actually have a conversation with me, even though he had zero interest in it himself. So ladies, find you a man like Jeff.
We call that Stockholm Syndrome.
Beauty and the Beast.
So, okay, next question.
Emily, is this all from the same person?
Yeah, this is the last question from this person. From Judy.
Who's the person that sent us these questions?
Judy.
We can just
I
use
don't wanna
first names.
I'll just say Judy. Yeah, Judy.
Yeah, you know who you are, Judy. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Judy. Our last question from Judy is, what has been our favorite episode so far? I'm going to say probably the Anne Boleyn episodes, but also I love King Napped.
God,
King
King Nap
Nap.
was so good.
That
That's
was-
our watermark for quality in the show. We don't know
Yeah.
about the listeners, but we think that one's hilarious.
I think that one
We
was just
still think
had
it's
way
funny.
too much fun. Like even like re-listening to it, I was like
Yeah.
laughing my ass off. When
We had
I
a really
listened
great
back
time.
to that one.
We really liked that one. Okay, so Emma wants to know, she said she's interested in what people like the nobles, his family, the peasants, and other royals thought about the amount of wives Henry VIII had and how he got rid of them. So, okay. The peasants were really pissed that so you have to remember that in the 16th century, in the 1500s, news didn't travel very fast, and some villages wouldn't find anything out unless they had a relative in another village or somebody just happened to be passing through, and that's how they found
I
out.
like to imagine someone here is like, wait, he's on his fifth wife. What happened to the first one? They're just that far out of the loop.
So they would not find things out instantly, but many people, especially in like London, which is, the hub of England at the time, they were furious that Henry was divorcing Catherine. Everybody loved Queen Catherine. They thought she was just the sweetest woman, and they hated the idea of him divorcing. The court wasn't too happy with it unless they were of the Boleyn faction. Thereafter, though, people were pretty quiet whenever he ditched a wife. Just
Well,
because,
after what happened to Anne, they're like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything back now.
Yeah, the court did go into mourning for Jane Seymour because she had finally produced a son. And so that was therefore the successful queen, the one who gave him a son. So they did go into mourning for her. So they were sad about her dying. And then there was Anne of Cleves. And that ended so poorly for Thomas Cromwell that nobody was going to speak up about it. And then Catherine Howard, everybody thought she was naughty. So, because, those were the words used, naughty. So other royals condemned Catherine Howard's behavior. So after Henry was widowed with Jane Seymour's death, he tried to get engaged to this beautiful woman, Christina of Denmark. Yeah, Christina of Denmark. And she was apparently a very beautiful woman, and she said, upon being told that Henry wanted to consider her as a wife, if I had two heads, I would gladly give him one of them. So other royals were aware of what was happening, and it wasn't quite... I don't know. Some of them, they thought Catherine the Howard... They thought Catherine Howard was, bad because she had an affair. Anne Boleyn, a lot of people were kind of happy to see the end of her. I don't know about other royals, but definitely the court and England. So it just depended on the wife. It wasn't there weren't a lot of people who were like, holy crap, how many wives is he going to have? But there is a report that I think one of Anne of Cleves' ladies said something along the lines of, how many wives is this man going to have? And she ended up getting sent to prison for it. So it was very, she She also asked, when compared to his dad, did they think he was a better ruler? And so what if he's fickle when it comes to queens? Henry VII is considered a miser. Like, he was a really cheap man, and he put on a lot of taxes on the people. So when Henry VIII came to the throne, he beheaded 2 of the men who were in charge of spending for Henry VII to be like, hey, look, I like you guys too.
Look, I can spend money.
Yeah, so people really liked Henry VIII in the beginning of that. And, I mean, I think they were just kind of like, he's the king. I was just reading about this, and he was a figurehead, so there were a lot of unpopular reforms made during that time. But at the same time, it was like, it's still a government, you know? So some people liked him, some people hated him, others knew to shut their mouth or else they'd get beheaded. Okay, our next question. What are your spirit animals?
I already guessed Garrett's.
Yeah. Garrett, tell them what you think Garrett's spirit animal is.
It's an otter.
See, do we have to be literally animals to be spirit animals?
I said for Garrett, Detective Cooper.
Oh, well, if we're talking about
Other people?
anything that could, any fictional thing that could be a spirit animal, then yes, Special Agent Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks. Oh my God, I love him so much.
I feel like I can't answer my own spirit animal. I'm not self-aware enough. Jeff, what's my spirit animal?
Tetra.
Our cat.
We have a big fat kitty named Tetra, and she's lovable and
Oh
adorable.
man, I saw your Snapchat today of Tetra, and she's so fat.
I know, my sister messaged me about it. She's so cute. She's on a diet. She's losing
She is
weight.
cute.
What would it be a cat? I don't feel like I'm a cat.
Nah, you're not that much of a cat.
I
Jeff,
also
what's your
don't
spirit animal?
Oh God, I don't even know. I don't even know what people even say mine
I don't
is.
know. I've never,
if I'd have to guess, I'd say Wacko Warner.
Is there a BuzzFeed
That's
quiz about
pretty
this?
close.
Is there a BuzzFeed quiz
Anything
about this?
like crazy cartoon person is probably close
Anything
to
from
me.
the Steven Spielberg catalog of cartoons.
You know what?
like Freakazoid.
Yeah.
I think I took a quiz about my Patronus. I think this is better than a spirit animal. My Patronus is a rabbit, I think. I think J.K. Rowling and I share a Patronus. I'm a rabbit, so
Okay,
that's
if it's
yeah.
a Patronus, I'd probably have a sloth.
okay. We were also asked about our day jobs again. We already answered that. What actor do you think has best portrayed Henry VIII?
Clearly not Jonathan Rhys Davies.
Jonathan Rhys Davies was the best.
Who has portrayed Henry VIII?
Well, Jonathan Rhys
Jonathan
Myers,
Rhys
and
Myers,
then there's been recently
Timothy Burton. No.
the guy who
Tim
Burton.
there's
Is
the
it Tim Burton?
there's the recent guy
Timothy
in the
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
what
Wolf
was it?
Hall is the
yeah,
show.
the guy who plays him
And
in
his
that.
name is Dwayne.
Damian Lewis.
Yes. I like Damian Lewis.
He
yeah.
fit the part, especially for a younger
Yeah, I liked him.
Henry with the red head and look of him.
Yeah.
Problem is, I'm trying to.
Okay,
and then,
going to Movie Pilot,
There's also
the
Eric
greatest actors
Bana
who have
played him in
played.
the other
Let's not
Boleyn
talk
Girl.
about Eric Bana.
But I feel like that's like that's like the Jonathan Rhys Myers kind of
Yeah,
direction
it's
of
not.
Henry, which seems kind of off.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna go through this. The people who have played Henry VIII, the top 6 according to MoviePilot.com. Number 6, Homer Simpson. Ray Winstone, don't know who that is.
Did it say
Oh.
what they've starred in?
Or
what year, at least?
No, but it was in a movie with Helena Bonham Carter as Anne Boleyn.
Yes, and I know that movie.
Then
And,
there's
yeah,
Eric
I could
Bana,
totally see that.
Damian Lewis. I'm going to skip number 2. Number 1 is Jonathan Rhys Myers. Could you guess who number 2 is?
Skipping it.
I hope it's not Eric Bana. I'll be upset.
No, he's already on the list.
Oh,
It's
really?
Rowan Atkinson.
Oh my God! Yes. Is it? I think it's in Is it? It's not Black Adler, is it?
No, it says Horrible Histories.
Oh my God! Yes, that's the thing where
Oh my gosh.
we got
Henry,
sent.
Henry, something.
Yeah.
Hoy.
Henry, or William, Henry, Richard, something, John. Oi! Yeah, I'm gonna go with Rowan Atkinson. Never saw it, but I know he's the best.
I mean, England loves him.
He is so beautiful and such a talent.
He also played the Doctor in a parody.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
It's actually
It's
actually has a bunch of known people. Like Hugh Grant is in it, and
That's
some
funny.
other like random known actors at the time. It's like a sketch or something for something. But see, like, yeah, I don't know too many actors who portrayed him. You know, I'll believe. I think Damian Lewis kind of fit the part for a younger one. I don't know. It's kind of tough to see anyone who could play old Henry without being some fat guy.
My
Yeah.
8th grade history teacher. Next question. He really did look like him. Holy crap, now that I think about it. Wow.
What are some of your favorite non-Tudor books and movies? So Jeff and I own like 700 movies, literally.
Is that really what the count is up to?
Yeah,
It's up
because
there.
because you got us the Universal and the
No, we got the Warner Brothers box that has like 50 movies in it.
Oh,
and we
yeah.
have the Universal collection. So we had about 600, and then you got us those. So I think we're about 700 now. And I can't pick a favorite because there are too many.
My
But I love Spaceballs.
My favorite series is actually Indiana Jones. At least
Oh, yeah.
at least there's just the trilogy.
The original.
I can watch those any day.
Yeah, they're amazing.
When it comes to movies, my favorites, I think my top 3 is something like Ghostbusters is number 1, hands down, favorite movie.
Good man.
And then The Thing is up there as well.
I know you love that
That
one.
movie's
Oh,
so good.
man. Okay, let's get Kurt Russell from that movie to play Henry VIII. He's got that big old beard. And he's just so great. I love him.
I'd watch that.
I really don't know what I'd have for 3.
I do have a favorite movie. It's Singing in the Rain. I could watch
Oh,
that
yeah.
movie any day.
My favorite comedy is Young Frankenstein.
That movie's so funny.
That's my cheer me up movie.
Yeah, that one's funny. I love it.
Favorite book? I
favorite-
don't read too much.
Garrett
My
doesn't know how
favorite
to
book
read.
growing up was Ender's Game, though. I really
I was
like
just
that
about to
one.
say that for you.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't read that much either. I read like occasionally like comic book stories. I read some books. Like recently I actually really loved
Ready
Player One. That was a really good one. where
Garrett,
it's
you'd like that one too.
It's just full of like
Everyone
80s nostalgia.
Everyone says,
and
Garrett, you would
video
love Ready
games.
Player One, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
It's got
you could get the audiobook, but fucking Will Wheaton does it. So
just read it.
You don't like
because
Will Wheaton?
I despise that man. He's so obnoxious.
I like him. I think he's
he's-
charming.
I do not. I think he's.
Shut up, Wesley.
Oh, would you rather have him or Chris Hardwick?
Hardwick.
Hardwick.
Oh no, I'd take Wheaton over Hardwick.
Ew, shut up. No, I mean, Will Wheaton is just, he sounds so pompous all the time. Like, he just sounds like that nerd in your 7th grade class who knew everything about things
Yeah,
that nobody
that nerd
cared.
was me.
No, he's pompous about it, though.
Yeah, that was me back
I
in 7th
hate
grade.
Will Wheaton. I probably would have hated you in 7th
Were you an
grade.
actually kid where someone would say
Yes.
something and you're
I
like,
Actually-
still am an
actually.
actually kid. What are you talking about?
Actually, I was an actually kid.
Actually, Jeff.
No.
Anyway, next question.
Another question about what Henry's subjects thought about him at the time. Was he generally liked or disliked? Did he think he was wise or a fool? So
It
here's
seemed like,
the thing.
It seemed like starting off, they're like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
things
By
were
the
going
end, they're
really
like,
well in the beginning.
okay, but then also, like, it's not like the peasants were raised with any sort of political mindedness. They just wanted to make ends meet. So their only thoughts would be like, am I going to get taxed this year? And
Or
how
beheaded.
much? And how do I... Sorry. How do I
Somebody's
avoid
sleepy.
getting... I am. So I think that... So here's the thing. He was liked in the beginning of his reign because everybody likes a new monarch. During the first 20 years of his reign, when he was married to Catherine, things were pretty hunky-dory. Like, he would have been a fine king, not the best, not the worst. And then the Anne Boleyn stuff happened, and a lot of people disliked him for it, but it wasn't like they wouldn't have blamed Henry. They would have been like, oh, it's that witch Anne. It's Anne Boleyn's fault, all of it. And then there was the Pilgrimage of the Grace, which was an uprising against Henry. So clearly there were people who disliked him and they were willing to die for their faith. And then, at the end of his reign, every monarch who reigns for a long time kind of dies unpopular. Like, people are almost ready for, even like Elizabeth I, people are kind of ready for a new one. They're like, okay, done with this.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be a really difficult thing with a monarch is the fact that they're in power until death.
Right.
Like, to have someone, like, for us in the States, it's imagining having, like, any president for, like, decades at a time.
God. Don't give any ideas. But then it's also important to remember. So when his children took over, so Edward came to the throne and he tried making it so that his cousin ended up as queen, and people were pissed about it and they wanted Mary on the throne because she was Henry's daughter. And then they loved Elizabeth because she was Henry's daughter. Like, it was almost like a revival of loving Henry as this magnanimous,
I
loving
understand
king.
Mary because she was Catherine of Aragon's child.
Yeah.
I can see that's why people want her, because how much Catherine of Aragon was loved by the public.
Yeah. Yeah, but okay, so everybody wanted Mary on at first, and then she went and married a Spanish man, and they were like, fuck off. Like, she got insanely unpopular because of that marriage. So, but she was originally loved because they're like, no, she's Henry VIII's daughter. And then, same with Elizabeth. Whenever she did anything baller, people were like, oh, that's Henry VIII's daughter, that is. So, that's, I guess, it for this question. What historical... Oh, that was from Jessica. So, thank you, Jessica. And then, here we have some questions from Stephanie. What historical time periods are you most interested in, aside from the Tudor era?
I think we covered this kind of already.
Yeah, but I'm
like
interested
ancient
in
Rome.
more... I'm interested... I mean, the first one was about a podcast.
Okay.
I'm interested in other times that like don't warrant a podcast. Like, I really like learning about World War I and II.
I am actually a big World War II person. I remember, like, in high school loving learning, because my teacher was actually, like, way better about going in depth and giving the more interesting sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to college, my teacher talked about World War II for like a week.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
crazy.
would spend like 5 weeks on like one of the other random subjects in American history. And it's like, oh, okay.
I'm recently getting really interested in World War One, because World War II couldn't have happened without the events of World War One. I mean,
I feel like there's been a bigger resurgence of World War One interest lately.
let's go ahead and say that's because of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I can believe it. I mean, also, it's kind of like, because World War II has been used so often in different forms of like movies and
Yeah,
TV shows
books.
that like you don't see much portrayal of World War One in big productions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, me like ancient Greece again, the feudal Japan.
That'd be cool.
Egyptians are actually really
Oh
fascinating.
Egyptians are
God, that'd
pretty
be
cool,
so
yeah.
cool. Okay, here's a good question. If you had to live in any time period other than the present day, when would you choose and why?
The 80s.
Wow, Garrett, you were ready for that one.
I'm always
Garrett
ready to
is
talk
like
about
is
the
an
80s.
80s child
He
who
is.
should have been that, like, those kids you always see in like the weird like 80s like nerdy movies like
my God,
The
yeah.
Wizard or
Yeah.
Tron
Yes.
or Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah, I
Garrett has
I
thought
should have
about
been
that
all
one.
the kids from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Jeff, what about you?
I don't know. There's something about the 80s where it's just like, it's like we're on in some sort of like boom, and like technology was like advancing, but it wasn't like exploding to the point where we are now.
Yeah.
And it just
It's,
I don't know.
I think it's kind of where pop culture heavy came
yeah,
from.
a lot of good pop culture came out of the
like
80s.
like big pop culture, like blockbuster like movies, the crazy like more out there loud outfits, the
Yeah.
more over the top like music videos and the pop stars at the time.
Yeah, I
like
can
real
see that.
pop stars.
Madonna.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I could ever live in a time before 1900s just because like I like technology way too much.
I like baths.
I actually
I
kind
like
of like
plumbing.
Yeah, I actually kind of like my dad was a kid in the 50s into the 60s. I kind of like being like a teenager in the 60s because that's when a lot of like, for me it's like the bands,
Yeah.
And also
yeah.
like being and then like being like a teenager like around the time of like Zeppelin and Beatles and Who and Rolling
Yeah.
Stones and being growing up at that, like my dad used to listen to all the time, like, and then being an adult into the 70s where a lot of like great cinematic stuff happened. Like 75 was Jaws and 77 being a like young adult when the first Star Wars came out to be
Yeah.
like to really see it
Yeah.
and enjoy it as it is.
That'd be cool.
So like that's
I
how,
would-
like I want to live in a time when like some of the really big movies, like being alive when some of these really big movies happened.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I would also like the 50s because I want to be a greaser.
I could see you being a greaser. Carry a
God.
switchblade.
Yes.
I don't know. So I don't want to live in a time period. I just kind of want to observe time periods. Like I want to
Yeah.
like if I could vacation in a time period for a week at a time, I do I definitely do ancient Rome. I would definitely do the American Revolution and the French Revolution, but for that one, I think I'd just like really hang on the outskirts of town.
None of these people are singing. This is really Les Mis really set this wrong tone.
I think I'd want to experience life. This one might seem weird. I think I'd like to experience what life was like in Afghanistan in the 80s because it's such a juxtaposition from what it is today. So I just like to see that.
I've had this conversation a lot with other people about like if you could live another time, and it's like the interesting like decider is, do you get to live in that time kind of knowing
What's
from
gonna
what's going to
happen.
happen, or do you want to live in that time as just a person at that time? Because like
Yeah.
one of my friends, he's like, I know myself too much. No matter what period I'm in, I'm always going to be miserable about my current society and generation.
Yeah, if I knew what was going to happen, I wouldn't want to live in any time period other than now. I'd want to just hop, skip, and jump around periods. If I didn't know what was happening, I'd say the 1700s because there was enough reform happening that I wasn't necessarily going to be screwed over. Although there's that whole
wouldn't
I'm
mind
owned
living-
by my husband.
I wouldn't mind living like ancient Rome, like when Rome was at the height of its like empire, like because really like the Roman city was so like all the technology and advancements they had,
Yeah.
and then when it fell, it all just like disappeared.
Yup.
For decades and
Wait,
centuries.
Yeah.
I know where I want to live.
Oh no.
The height of the Library of Alexandria.
Of course.
I just,
When it actually was a library.
oh God. Do you have any idea how much it upsets me that like I still get very upset that library was destroyed? There's an estimate that we lost 1,000 years of progress based on the loss of knowledge from that library.
Oh man.
Wow.
Can you imagine that, guys? Like we're still being affected today.
Thank God for the internet and all the cat
not.
videos.
Ugh, I'm so upset. So I like that question. Good job.
One more that I thought of.
Yeah,
Probably the late 1800s.
that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
actually,
'cause, like-
actually, I have thought about that a lot. And can you imagine? Can you imagine being alive in the 1850s up through, like, let's say you had a really long lifetime because you'd experienced the Civil War, the invention of the car, and possibly the Roaring 20s if you lived long enough.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be fucking cool. I
Oh,
think that was one of
That's
the
weird to think about that. There could be like really old people who like I was around when Civil War was happening, when World War I started happening.
So you know what's really trippy? I think about that all the time. Like there were people who were alive in World War I who were alive during the Civil War. It's so trippy.
Yeah.
So I'm reading a book about Queen Victoria right now. It's called Victoria the Queen by Julia Baird, and it's really good. And Queen Victoria was the granddaughter of George III, who was the king when America was like, fuck you, we're going to make our own thing and be awesome. And I'll do it with blackjack and hookers. And it's just really interesting because she was born just 30 years after Marie Antoinette was beheaded. So her parents were alive during the French Revolution, and she died in 1901. That's trippy. Like, it's so crazy. Like, I love history for that reason. So yeah, Garrett, I agree with you. I'd go there.
Okay. Cool.
Which person from the Tudor era do you most admire or identify with?
Emily Anne Boleyn.
No, actually.
Oh.
No. And I thought about that one, and at first I did think maybe Anne Boleyn, but I don't think she is the person I admire the most. I'm fascinated by her. I think she's a really interesting woman, but I don't identify with her, and I don't necessarily admire her. I'd have to think about that. Guys, you go ahead and answer if you have a...
Henry's horse. I just like that answer. I thought that was actually a really good one.
Let me think.
Yeah, I
Thing
really
is-
don't know. I
Yeah,
can't
the thing
think
is-
of anybody.
The thing is, the whole point with Garrett and I, we don't know as much about this
I
stuff.
know. Well, maybe
Yeah.
based on the people I've told you about.
I think I'm actually kind of fascinated by Charles Brendan,
Charles Brandon, yeah.
just because like how long he lived too, and like one of Henry's friends to be around that long
Yeah.
with him and go
He's-
through as much, but also like bail out on him too at times.
So for some reason, I really want to say Mary Tudor, the French queen. It was Henry's sister who married the French king, and then he died after like 3 months, apparently from too much sex.
Nice.
That's how I want to take out a man
High
with my
five.
vagina. Yeah, there's something about her that I really like. And I think it's that she disobeyed her brother. She kind of like, she was like, hey, you have to promise me that you can let me get married to who I want after my husband dies. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatevs. And then she did it. And she's like, fuck you. And she's like, also, I hate your whore. So I kind of admire that for that time period. I think it was pretty baller. I don't know. Yeah, there's just something about Mary Tudor that I like. Mary Tudor Brandon. Yeah. So, Garrett, do you have any?
I really can't think of anybody.
Okay.
Like-
Next
like,
question.
There aren't too many male figures that we've talked about that stick out to me.
Yeah. Our next question
Not that I can't
is,
identify with a female person from the time period, but
Garrett identifies with Catherine of Aragon.
I
Okay,
stick with Jeff's answer. I identify with the horse.
Anne Boleyn. Where in the world do you most want to visit?
Once again, probably Japan. I'm actually thinking about.
I was gonna
doing
say that
something like
too.
Italy, Japan are my two big ones.
England
right
would be
now,
pretty cool.
Right now, I'd say to England because of the history. Not just the Tudor history. It's just like from living in America where our history is 200 years, 300 years, and we've got virtually nothing. And then you go to Europe and it's thousands of years.
Yeah, that's always the thing
I
about
think
the
I'd
United
go to,
States. Is like
I'd go to England.
we're only like a couple hundred years old, and
Yeah.
then you go to like over there and like, oh, we've been around for centuries.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What have you guys been up to?
Yeah. We invented the car.
Remember that time we fought with each other? Yeah, that was cool.
Who are your favorite authors? I really like Stephen King, but I've just been on a kick for that lately. Julia Fox, I really like her. She's a good historical writer. Really like
Stanley.
her. Stanley, that's a good one.
I really don't have anybody. Again, I'm not really a reader.
That's okay. We'll forgive you.
I do like Stephen King a lot. Actually, like I don't read his stuff at all, but just the amount of stuff he has like produced in his lifetime
crazy.
and how much active he still stays with everything.
Some people think it's a ghost name. Like he's got a slew of, I don't know, 9-year-old children in a workshop writing their books for him because he produces so many of them and he just puts his name on them. My job was to write all day. I mean, like if I could get paid to just write a book, I'd be cranking them out.
Well, especially with him, like I think he just seems like one of those guys who just really just loves it and he's never held back on what he writes about.
No.
It's not like Clancy who just writes all these like government military stuff all the time, Or
Yeah.
he kind of like, I'm going to write a book about an evil clown that terrorizes kids in the sewers. And now I'm going to write one about just guys in a prison.
Yeah. Okay, this I really like. So those were from Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie. These
Thanks.
questions are from I'm really sorry if I butcher your name. I think it's Anon, Annan. I'm gonna say it's Anon.
I'm pretty sure it's a non.
Me too. What are your earliest memories about? Mine are I know what mine are. Mine are from when I was about 3 or 4. And my family and I lived in a house on a cul-de-sac. And I have a couple of vivid memories from that. One was cutting off a chunk of my own hair and then staring at it and being like, shit. I mean, obviously I wasn't a 3-year-old saying shit, but I remember the horror. And I thought I could hide it by flushing it down the toilet. So I did that.
Works
think it
with
was like
fish,
three-
not with hair.
Then I have another memory of playing on a swing set, and one of my best friend ran in front of me when I was on the swing, and I kicked him. But that was his own damn fault. I remember my grandma babysitting me at that house, and I remember. Oh, here's what I remember: my mom was pregnant with my younger sister Madeline, and she was on bed rest, and she cross stitched, and I remember sitting in bed with her watching her cross stitch. I was like, I would have been like 4 at that time. Those are my earliest memories.
My earliest memory is of when my mom and dad's house was being built. I think I was like 2 or 3. There was like this giant dirt pit right next to the house that I remember going into and playing around in. It was pretty cool.
I just have memories like being around my parents' house as a kid. I remember one because my parents had a screen and porch that we loved to go on. I remember being a kid on it. I had a stuffed animal, Disney Dalmatian.
Aww.
And I remember holding it. It was Spot too, the one that had the patch over. No, Patch, the one that had the patch
Yeah.
over his eye. I had that one, and I just remember like walking around the porch at night with my parents, like it was during like a summer evening. I think I was like 3 or 4 on that
Isn't
time.
it crazy how much we remember from being like?
Well, it's like flashes of stuff. Like,
But it's still weird.
yeah,
What?
Oh, I
what
also
year
remember-
did what year did Aladdin come out?
92.
92, because I remember seeing that in theaters with my grandpa, so that may actually be my.
That would've
first
been- you've been,
memory.
like,
Hold
about
on.
4
Little
on the-
Mermaid was 89. Beauty and the Beast was 91, and Aladdin was 92.
Okay.
Yeah. My grandma took me to see. Oh, I remember
I have
grandma
so many
taking me to
movies and
see.
movie memories.
I remember my grandma taking me to see The Lion King in theaters, and when Pumbaa farted or something, I remember laughing my ass off.
I remember seeing Power Rangers, the first movie in theaters with Ivan Ooze. None of this Breakfast Club bull crap today.
I love it. Okay, so she also said, I love your guys' podcast, and I'm an armchair historian. I love that phrasing, and I think we should now, that's like the only thing I can call myself now. What advice would you have for me to start a podcast as successful as yours with materials, websites, services to get me started? So this is like, for us, it's just a fun hobby. But it'd be really cool if we had the kind of money to buy better equipment, because I think that's what like.
We are literally using Rock Band microphones
Yeah.
that I had from like my Xbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the video game Rock Band microphones.
Like,
that is what we are using.
Go to GameStop
record
and
the
buy
show.
it for $5.
And even before then, like we bought like my mic stand I had when I was in college when I used to do audio projects, and then we bought before we first started, I was just holding the microphone in my hand.
Yeah.
And then we eventually got like mic stands we bought off Amazon for like $10.
We got pop screens.
Yeah,
the,
we
pop,
got fancier.
the mics. Definitely get a mic stand.
The mic stand that I'm using is literally a napkin holder. That is not a joke. It's a bird-shaped napkin holder that I wedged this stupid microphone into, and it points it up at my mouth, and it works.
That is one of the most important.
And then I go
things.
to
Make
my
sure
actual
you're-
job, and we have like
Hundreds,
$1,000 equipment, like the top of the line shit that we get to use there, and it's like, man.
Dream of
And we used to
dreams.
record on a Mac computer. It's just GarageBand that comes with your Mac.
Yeah.
That's what we used to record. And Garrett Skypes with us, and then I edited it all on Audition, which is a nicer program, but a free one is Audacity, which works just fine for a podcast since it's just all talking.
And then we use Libsyn to produce. So that one's super easy.
just
You can pay
upload
for
it.
like $10 a month for a couple episodes, and then that's what we were doing. And then we went to one every week, so we pay a little bit more. You just upload the episode and you can sync it to iTunes. It's super simple.
As for actually like make up a subject for your podcast, something you just find really passionate about to talk about.
You got to make sure you have
discuss.
enough to talk about,
Yes.
because like
You can run out of episodes really quick if you stick to such a really narrow subject. Like, luckily, Tudors is pretty narrow enough, but also has so much information to cover and ways to expand from it.
One thing that I heard that like always stuck with me, I listened to a podcast a long time ago, and these guys said that whenever they do like a new video project or a new podcast or anything like that, they do 6 or 7 episodes that they do not release, but get them into a state where they would release them, like produce them and edit them and all that stuff, and then learn from your mistakes from those.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, just practice until you're at a point where it's like, okay, we got this deal.
Yeah.
You get yourself into a groove.
We definitely did not do that.
No.
Well, like even our first episode, I think we recorded once and we listened to it like,
We're like, this is terrible.
and we restarted and it was like a whole different.
Yeah, the first
feel.
episode was awful and boring.
It
And,
took us a
ugh.
while. Like the early episodes, it's still we were like kind of learning.
I gotta say, my
to
one regret
do
is
it.
splitting the Anne Boleyn episode into 2.
Yeah, because like that's back when we were like, oh, we'll just do 30-minute episodes. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, people want it to be an hour. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
So
It's just as long as you have something you can really, because it's hard to do when you're not a well-known person. Like there's a lot of celebrities who have their podcasts. They get the attention because they're already known by people.
Yeah.
Like I listen to Adam Savage from MythBusters just because I like him, and he talks about like their podcast is about anything, like what's going on with our day. I saw this movie, whereas a lot of good ones to unknowns are constantly just really like talking about, and then you just can like put it out there because some people are looking for certain podcasts about certain subjects they like too, and I think that's what helps a lot. Like there's a lot of ones like about broad, like I just talk about movies, I just talk about video games, I talk about TV series. But if you give something unique to those,
yeah.
it makes you separate yourself out from others.
Yeah. When it comes to equipment, definitely make sure you have something to hold your microphone, because when you're moving it around, it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
If
I'm guilty of that.
It's okay, we still love you.
We
Garrett.
all are.
If we had extra money, we'd totally get a soundboard so that we could edit. We could do everything, but soundboards are expensive, and
Podcasts do not pay very well.
Actually, remind me, because actually they don't pay at all. But yeah, remind me. I might know somebody that might be able to get some good equipment.
seriously,
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe.
Garrett, let's get on that.
Yeah.
All right.
Remind me tomorrow.
But hopefully that information at least helped you out
Yeah.
somewhat.
And just make sure it's something you have fun with. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't dread recording an episode.
Yeah, like look forward to talking about it.
Yeah, fine.
and
Yeah.
just have fun with it.
Just have fun. Okay, our next question is, if you could be a person from the Tudor period, who would you be? I would be Charles Brandon.
Yeah, because he lived the longest.
He's safest. And he was so close to everything, and he was BFFs with Henry.
I would have
And
picked.
he was
And you
his
guys be played by
brother-in-law.
Henry Cavill in the future.
Yes. Charles Brandon. I mean, think
I
about
think
it.
that really
He
is a good
experienced
answer.
a lot of awesome stuff. Like, he was
He had
best
the-
friends with Henry.
He had all the fun of being the entourage to Henry.
Yeah. He
Oh,
didn't
man.
get
Have
sent
we?
to prison.
Is that a movie idea yet? Entourage.
Entourage,
Oh, God.
Tudor's years.
He married his sister. He married a lot. He fought wars. Like, Charles Brandon had a pretty baller life in the Tudor period. So absolutely, I'd be Charles Brandon. What
I
about
would
you,
pick
Garrett?
Henry because he was getting laid
Yes,
a lot.
he was getting
Maybe
all the
not a lot.
ladies.
Also, he was a king. He could do whatever the hell he wanted.
That's true. Yeah. You can be. I guess you can be a tyrant. So that was from Brendan. Thank you, Brendan.
I'll be Henry up until he became a shithead.
So 1936 or 1536. Holy shit.
Oh,
Wow, he was a cool dude for a long time.
All right, our last question is from Lindsay, and she wants to know, why don't the people who have come from other countries who came to marry royalty never or rarely return back to their countries post-divorce, annulment, or widowed? So Catherine of Aragon, Anne of Cleves. So here's the thing. that could be built. That could be talked into your contract, into your marriage contract, where there says if you're widowed, you can come back to your country. And some people did do that. However, Catherine of Aragon was not willing to do that. She didn't acknowledge that she was divorced, so she didn't want to go back to her country.
Oh yes,
Now,
the great denial.
However, after Arthur died, there was a discussion with Ferdinand and Henry. Would she go back, or should she stay, or should she go now? And it ultimately came down to her father being a cheapskate and Henry VII being a cheapskate. Like, if she stayed, then her father had to pay out the rest of her dowry, and if she returned, Henry VIII had to return the dowry, and neither wanted to give that money up. So, that was why that happened. And then Anne of Cleves, she liked England. She didn't want to return to her brother. I think she was given the option, but Henry VIII was like, hey, if you stay, I'll call you my sister. I'll give you all this money. I'll give you all these castles, and you're going to be pretty much set for life. And she's like, well, fucking duh. Why would I go back? So I think it came down to what the women wanted. Sometimes it came down to what the women wanted to do, and sometimes it came down to just politics. So
that's it.
That is it.
That was a pretty fun episode. Like
Yeah.
It's nice getting out of our normal routine.
Yeah, it is. Nice to talk a little bit about ourselves. Let them get to know us.
So they can find out more about us and where we live.
Let's not talk about that. They already know we live in...
Here, I got the Indiana part down.
Yeah. So... well then, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next time. What do you guys think?
I don't know. What have we talked about? I think we talked about bringing Cardinal Wolsey up at some point.
Yeah. We can do that.
Because we just talked about
Margaret
Grandma
Beaufort,
Henry.
Grandma Henry.
With our awesome guest. That was
Yeah.
actually really fun doing it with them.
Yeah, it was.
You mind if I bring something up real quick?
Yeah.
So we had a listener, somebody on our Facebook, share something with us the other
so
day,
cool.
which was super cool.
Yeah, I love you.
It was Shannon went to
Yes.
Hampton Court
And
Yeah.
took our picture with her.
Yeah, print out a little picture of our logo and pose in front of Hampton Court, and that was
super
I
awesome.
kinda love you.
Like the fact that you're all out there enjoying there, and that you thought about us while out there,
Yeah, you're amazing.
made me really happy.
We love you. Thank you so much.
so. Emily, you and I have been to England.
Yes,
Finally,
we actually don't need to go now.
except for me. You know, I didn't see a Nicolas Cage on there.
What?
Also, fun fact: today's episode is our 30th episode.
Hooray!
We've made it this far, people.
And 30 more.
So many more. Hey, that's cool. It's been a pretty fun time, guys. We've really enjoyed doing this. Like I said, this is just a fun thing for us to do. So it's really cool that people actually care enough to ask us questions and listen to us regularly. So we really appreciate it. We like you guys. We're glad you like us. So
I like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
too. If you want to follow us, you can do so on Twitter at Tudor Know Her, or on Facebook, just Tudor I Hardly Know Her. And that's it until next time, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all good.
So we will see you next time, or talk to you next time. You'll just listen to us next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for everything, everybody. Thanks for the questions. We love you all. Divorce beheaded died. Divorce beheaded
Divorce beheaded
survived.
survived. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Goodbye.